How's it going, everybody? My name is LuckyBunz, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over the new raid changes in Pokemon GO. I have gotten so many comments recently asking me to cover these, so this is the first time in years that we've actually seen a raid shakeup this massive, and it does seem like some players are starting to freak out that their powered-up Pokemon have now become useless. Well, first of all, before we get into anything, I want to reassure you that your powered-up Pokemon have not become useless. They are still very much usable, but they might not be the best of the best anymore because of these changes. And I'll go into everything in detail, but there is a lot to cover. I mean, this seriously was a very loaded update. And also, a quick disclaimer for people who probably aren't going to watch this video all the way through, I would definitely wait to power up your Pokemon until some of these changes have been finalized, whether or not we know it's intentional or not. So let's go ahead and start off with the Mega Pokemon and the bug that's currently affecting them. So basically, the stats in raids right now are being calculated using their non-Mega form. So for example, a Mega Charizard, which is 57 ER at level 50, it'll be using a regular Charizard stats, which is actually 39 ER. That's a 17-point difference in damage, which is massive on the ER scale. Now for those unfamiliar, because I know you're probably like, what does ER even mean? This is basically DPS times TDO to the third power, which pretty much just factors in damage per second and the bulk of a Pokemon. For those of you that are familiar with my best Pokemon to power up videos, this is the power scale that I actually use. I feel like it's the best representation of overall damage for a Pokemon. But anyways, going back to the main bug here, so Mega Pokemon are basically using the stats of their regular variants, their non-Mega forms, and again, like looking at Charizard for an example here, that is a massive difference, guys. This basically makes Mega Charizard kind of useless compared to some other fire-type attackers in the game because it's pretty much just pulling off Charizard stats. This has been confirmed to be a bug, like this is definitely not intentional, and apparently you can also tell based on the CP of your Mega Pokemon when it's in a raid battle. Your Mega Pokemon will be on the field, visually, but the CP of that Pokemon is going to display as the non-Mega. So if you're wondering if this has been fixed in the future, just look at the CP of your Pokemon. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be the HP bar on raid bosses. Apparently this has been changed, and some people have been claiming that this means that raid bosses are now easier to get done, but I can tell you right now that this is not true. Yes, the bar did change, and I think it actually just recently changed back, so again, purely a visual change here, but the HP on these raid bosses is still the same. This was confirmed by a Reddit user called FlyFunner, which debunked the original analysis from Lucky3838, no relation whatsoever. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that raid bosses have not become easier, it just means that the HP of them is pretty much the same. So there's actually a few other things I want to talk about here in terms of raid bosses actually becoming easier to take down. So let's talk about raid boss charge move consistency. So originally when a raid boss threw a charge move, there was a 50% chance of them using another one back to back if they had enough energy built up. This actually created a lot of inconsistency if they built up enough energy to throw multiple charge moves, like for example like Mega Lucario, right? It has access to Power Up Punch. That is a really spammy moveset, so it could just be throwing Power Up Punches back to back non-stop if it built up enough energy. That being said though, for really powerful moves like Hydro Pump on Gyarados, it was impossible for them to throw back to back. Moving forward though, after the recent changes, raid bosses will now actually throw their charge moves the moment that they get enough energy. Now I do think this is actually pretty cool because this adds more skill with raid boss solos. Like for example, your timing against certain charge moves will be more predictable once you're able to determine what moveset that Pokemon has. So assuming this change is going to, stay moving forward, I actually think this is a positive one. Now, additionally on top of that, you also have raid bosses gaining less energy from your moves thrown. So originally when raid bosses would generate energy, they would do it at the same rate as players when damage was taken from fast and charge attacks. Now after the changes though, raid bosses will now generate less energy when damage is taken from players, which means that they won't be throwing charge moves as often or as frequently. So this is actually another really positive change. If it does stick for the foreseeable future, this is really good. But now let's get into the biggest and craziest change to raid battles after the recent changes, and it pretty much is going to restructure the entire meta, and that's going to be the new 0.5 second cycle for raid battles. So basically damage is now dealt in regular intervals of 0.5 seconds, which means that moves are now rounded up or down to the nearest multiple of 0.5. So for example, moves that are between 0.8 and 1.2 seconds will now be rounded to 1 second. To give you guys some visual examples though, let's take a look at fast moves that actually became faster. So Shadow Claw and Metal Claw were originally 0.7 seconds in intervals, and now because of this change, they're actually going to go down to 0.5 seconds, making them even quicker. And then we also have heavy hitting moves like Waterfall and Smackdown, which went from 1.2 seconds to 1 second. So for Pokemon like Kyogre and Tyranitar, these are going to make them more meta relevant. And then for Shadow Claw and Metal Claw, I think you guys already know that's going to be Duskmane Necrozma and Dawnwing's Necrozma, two already incredibly OP Pokemon, so now they're just even better. We can also take a look at fast moves that became slower as well. For example, Wing Attack on Moltres went from 0.4 seconds to 0.5 seconds, so it's a little bit slower now. And then same thing with Counter. You know, counter was a big one on Pokemon like Lucario, Terrakion. It went from 0.9 seconds to 1 second. And then we also have charge moves that pretty much function the same way. One that actually became faster was Meteor Mash on Metagross, which went from 2.6 seconds to 2.5 seconds. These were the ones that were mentioned in the analysis on the Reddit post, so I would have to look at all the other ones to really determine which moves actually became better and which ones actually became worse. There is so much that is required to actually like redo my entire spreadsheet for Pokemon that are worth powering up. It takes a long time to put that together, and I mean, I try to update that as often as possible, but with this change, it means that I have to restructure my entire spreadsheet. That is going to take me days, probably, because I have to go through all the simulations for every single different Pokemon that's meta relevant. There are so many. Like, when I make the top videos, like top 50, top 60, whatever, like, keep in mind, there are way more Pokemon that I could be talking about. Now, with all that being said, though, it is worth mentioning that this move data was not changed in the GameMaster file. This was just a side effect of the new raid combat system. So it's also worth mentioning that gym battles were not affected by this, only raid battles. So both of these are potential indicators that these changes were not intentional and they might get reverted in the future. It's very possible that these were just merely a side effect of them introducing Dynamax raids. As a programmer would say, this is what happens when you have spaghetti code. So what exactly should you do moving forward now? Well, first of all, I would hold off on powering up anything for raids until we know for sure whether or not these changes were intentional. I'm not even exactly sure how long we're gonna have to wait though. Like, the only website that is currently up to date with these changes right now is Pokebattler to my knowledge. I'm still waiting for GamePress to update their website accordingly, but they are typically on the slower side. It does seem like most Pokemon have retained their ideal movesets, but there are also some situations where they have been replaced. Like I mentioned earlier, this is due to some moves becoming faster and others becoming slower, and usually it's like a combination of the two. For example, Keldeo is actually the best Pokemon in the game now for the fighting type category with a low kick and Sacred Sword, even beating out Mega Lucario with Force Palm and Aura Spear. I never thought in a million years that Keldeo would actually become the #1 fighting type attacker in game above Mega Lucario. Like, maybe better than Terrakion, but not Mega Lucario, dude. Like, that's just crazy to me. So with changes like this, I would like to start working on an updated best Pokemon to power up video, but given how long those videos actually take to put together, I don't want to start working on such a massive project until we are certain that these changes were intentional. Now, I would encourage you guys to not remove any legacy movesets as well. Like, in some situations, legacy moves have also become worse than non-legacy moves, and this may tempt you to remove a legacy move in place of a different move, but I would just recommend building another Pokemon instead of doing that. There's always a possibility that these moves can be updated in the future, and Elite TMs are a luxury for most players. Like, a very small amount of the player base has so many Elite TMs that they don't really care about it. Like, for example, Salamence with Draco Meteor is now ranked better than the Legacy Comday moveset Outrage. Like, that's kind of crazy to me. I'm not going to TM away my Outrage on my Salamence, that would just be kind of reckless, and I don't encourage you guys to do so either. Like, I would just keep it. At the end of the day, guys, like, this meta shakeup has likely disrupted a lot of your best Pokemon, including my own, and so even for myself, guys, I'm gonna have to figure out what's still good, you know, what's worth focusing on now, and if you guys do actually want me to make a video going through this process, assuming that these changes stick, let me know in the comment section down below. I do think it could be like a fun video that kind of showcases step by step how I set up my raid teams, especially given that if the meta is changed this much, like, a lot of the Pokemon that I thought are, you know, powered up that were really good, they're probably not going to be as good as they once were, and I'm going to have to look for, you know, replacements for some of them. Not all of them, but like for some of them. Now, finally, to end off the video, I want to give you guys some motivational advice, or at least I hope it's motivational. You know, as someone who's actually not spent any money on Pokecoins over the past 8 years, I can tell you firsthand, this is a slow-paced game. One of my viewers actually said this recently in a comment, and it really resonated with me. Like, this grind is a slow one, and there are often times where new players feel like they are owed a bunch of really, really good Pokemon. You can get all the good stuff in this game for free without spending any money. You just have to put in the work. And like, I am far from the best free-to-play player in this game. Like, I do not go out and get my 50 coins every single day, far from it. But I've been able to accomplish a lot over the 8 years that I have been playing this game. A lot of people will end up picking this game up on and off, and that's really normal for like most game cycles. And you might end up missing some good Pokemon during your breaks. So for those of you guys that are subscribed with notifications on, you don't really need to worry about this, because if there is something really good coming back into rotation, I'm gonna cover it on this channel, and you're gonna get notified. Anyways, with that being said, these changes only affected the raid meta, so for Pokemon for PvP, for Pokemon for rocket battles, those should still be good to go. And if you guys want to check out what are the best Pokemon to power up for those respective categories, you guys can watch these two videos right here.